You didn't decide to become quiet. You learned it. At first, silence wasn't an absence. It was a presence, something watchful, something careful. When you were young, there was a sense, often vague, rarely spoken, that things went better when you took up less space, when you noticed the mood before it shifted, when you held something back before it could cause trouble. Without realizing it, you began listening more than speaking, reading more than asking, adjusting more than needing. You learned that the room mattered more than your voice. This is how a child disappears, not suddenly, not dramatically, but in small, intelligent ways, by softening reactions, by swallowing questions, by learning that silence could keep things steady, or at least keep them from getting worse. You didn't call it coping. You called it being good, or mature, or easy. Sometimes you became the calm one, sometimes the responsible one, sometimes the invisible one, but always the one who noticed, the one who sensed tension before words formed, the one whose nervous system stayed quietly alert, scanning for changes in tone, pauses between sentences, doors closing too hard. This wasn't weakness, it was adaptation. A child who learns silence early often grows hyper-aware, not of danger exactly, but of emotional shifts. You learned to read people the way others read signs. You could tell when something was off, even if no one named it, and so your body learned to stay ready, ready to adjust, ready to contain. Psychologists might call this hypervigilance, but it doesn't feel like a clinical term from the inside. From the inside, it feels like responsibility, like staying one step ahead, like holding the emotional weight so no one else has to. Sometimes you became older than your age, not in wisdom, but in restraint. You sensed what others needed and quietly became that. You learned that expressing too much, joy, anger, confusion, could disrupt something fragile, so you regulated yourself early. You learned to self-soothe without knowing the word for it, and it worked. Silence kept you safe. Silence kept you included. Silence kept you from being a problem. What saved you then now imprisons you. As an adult, you may still carry this quiet vigilance inside. You notice that speaking feels heavier than listening, that expressing needs feels vaguely wrong even when no one is stopping you, that asking for help triggers a subtle tension as if you're crossing an invisible boundary. You may be articulate, thoughtful, emotionally intelligent. People may tell you you're calm, grounded, easy to talk to. They may feel deeply understood by you while never quite knowing you. Not because you were closed, but because you learned to open inward, not outward. Attachment forms quietly in this space. You may find yourself drawn to connection, yet unsure how much of yourself is allowed to exist inside it. You might minimize your needs without noticing. You might feel safest when you're useful, perceptive, accommodating. And when conflict arises, something old stirs. Your body tightens before your mind catches up. Your words slow. Silence returns, not as a choice, but as a reflex. This is the nervous system remembering. People who learn silence early often confuse stillness with safety. Your body learned that quiet reduced risk, that restraint prevented escalation. So even now, your system may settle not when things are resolved, but when they are unspoken. This doesn't mean you are broken. It means your system did exactly what it needed to do. There is often grief here, but it is subtle, not loud enough to cry out, not sharp enough to point at anyone. It lives in moments when you realize you don't quite know how to take up space without monitoring the impact. When emotion rises, then immediately manages it. When you are alone and feel tired without knowing why. This is the cost of early composure. And yet there is also depth. People who learn silence early often have rich inner worlds. You think in layers. You feel a nuance. You sense meaning beneath words. You understand emotional complexity, not because you studied it, but because you lived inside it.
Your silence was never emptiness, it was containment. Over time, you may begin to notice something shifting, not dramatically, not all at once, just a quiet awareness that the silence you learned was a language, not a personality, that it came from context, not essence, that the child who learned to disappear was not trying to vanish, but to survive. There was something gentle in realizing this, not a demand to change, not an instruction to speak more or heal faster, just an understanding, a soft loosening of self-judgment. You were not quiet because you had nothing to say. You were quiet because you were paying attention. And perhaps in that recognition, something inside you exhales, not into words, not into action, just into being seen, internally, finally, without needing to explain. The silence remains, but it no longer has to mean you are alone. The silence you carry is not empty space. It has shape, weight, history. It lives in the pauses before you speak, in the way you sense yourself, choosing words carefully, even when there is no obvious danger. It lives in how quickly you notice another person's discomfort and how slowly you register your own. Without realizing it, you learn to orient outward first, to make sure the emotional ground was stable before placing your foot down. Over time, this becomes an identity without ever being named. You may think of yourself as low maintenance or independent or self-contained. You may pride yourself on not needing much, and there is truth there, but it is incomplete, because needing less is not the same as having less need. People who learn silence early often carry an unspoken belief that their inner world must be managed privately, that feelings are safest when processed alone, that bringing them into the open risks burdening someone, disrupting equilibrium, or revealing something that cannot be taken back. So you learn to hold emotion the way one holds breath underwater, calm on the surface, pressure underneath. You might notice how quickly you intellectualize what you feel, how easily you understand it, explain it, contextualize it, without fully inhabiting it. This too was intelligent. Feelings became safer when turned into thoughts. Sensations became manageable when translated into meaning. This is how regulation became restraint. And yet there are moments, often quiet ones, when the cost makes itself known. A sudden fatigue after social closeness, a vague emptiness after being deeply understood by someone who never quite asked about you, a sense that connection is happening but not landing. Not because you are closed, but because opening was never modeled as safe. There is often a loneliness here that doesn't feel like isolation. You can be surrounded by people and still feel internally solitary, not unseen exactly, just unentered, as though the most essential parts of you live behind glass, observable but untouched. This is not a failure of intimacy. It is a memory of boundaries learned too early. Sometimes silence became a way to stay loyal to your family, to the past, to a version of yourself that learned to endure. Speaking freely can feel like betrayal, like rewriting a story that was never allowed to be told out loud. So the body resists, not consciously, gently, automatically. And still, there is something quietly changing. You may begin to notice moments when silence no longer feels protective, just heavy, when holding back feels less like safety and more like erasure, when the strategies that once kept you steady now keep you distant from yourself. What saved you then now imprisons you, not because of punishment, but as mismatch. The environment changed. You grew. The strategy stayed. This realization doesn't arrive as a breakthrough. It arrives as a soft questioning, a subtle curiosity about what you feel before you edit it, a fleeting sense that your presence might be allowed to be felt, not just managed. And there can be fear here, because silence was never just habit, it was shelter. Letting it loosen, even slightly, can feel like standing without armor. Vulnerability may register not as emotional openness, but as exposure. So you move slowly, or not at all, and that too is okay. Understanding demands no action. Awareness does not require change. There is meaning simply in recognizing that your quiet was never absence. It was effort. It was care. It was a child doing their best with limited options, a nervous system choosing the path of least harm. This reframes something fundamental. You were not overlooked because you were insignificant. You became quiet because you were perceptive. And perhaps now, the silence no longer needs to work so hard. It can rest beside you instead of standing guard. It can be a choice, not a reflex, a pause, not a disappearance. There is no instruction here, no next step waiting to be taken, just a gentle truth settling into place, that the part of you who learned silence early did so out of intelligence, not deficiency.
And being human, fully, quietly, imperfectly human, was always the point.